Let us begin our meditation with metta recital. I hope you all have the papers in front of you. And we look at the papers and we together we recite metta. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, even near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate all the world, a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, moving, wherever. One should develop this mindfulness, this echo divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures. One comes from a radiant. Now, people reading by the switch can turn off the switch, light switch, just behind you. Yeah. And the other one also. Bottom. Okay. At this time, sit quietly. Sit in a regular, comfortable posture and keep your body straight, upright, and relaxed. बोले में काटू करंट हम में के बैठी As you breathe in and out, you notice your breath and pay total undivided attention to your breathing without trying to verbalize or conceptualize. Let the breath flow in and out. And then you notice inhaling as inhaling, exhaling as exhaling. Then you notice long inhaling as long inhaling, long exhaling as long exhaling. After a while, you notice the length of breath changes. You notice short inhaling as short inhaling, short exhaling as short exhaling. Don't try to say in words that I am inhaling or I am exhaling. But let the breath flow in and out naturally. And simply pay attention to your breath. Short inhaling as short inhaling. Short exhaling as short exhaling. Then you notice the beginning, middle, and end of each inhaling and each exhaling. The moment breath touches your nostrils, that is the beginning of inhaling, then the whole breath goes to your lungs, that is the middle of inhaling. Then you notice inhaling stops when the lungs are full. That is the end of inhaling. After very insignificant break or pause, exhaling begins. That is the beginning of exhaling. Then the breath leaves your lungs, and then it ends. The entire breath that leaves your lungs is the middle of exhaling. Then exhaling stops. After a very brief pause, inhaling begins again. This is happening almost automatically. And then you begin to feel relaxed. Your mind is relaxed, body relaxes, the breath relaxes. This also happens naturally. You don't do deliberately to make your breath relax, the body relax, or the mind relax. It happens naturally. And noticing this relaxed body, relaxed breath, relaxed mind, breathe in and breathe out. All you notice is a flow of breath continuously in and out. All you do deliberately is paying attention to your breath. You don't have a chance to hold on to breath, cling to breath. Simply pay attention to it. Sometimes breathing is very pleasant, and still let it happen that way. When it fades away, become aware of that pleasantness. You may notice sometimes the breath is hard. Notice the touch of breath, touching breath, your nostrils. That is because of the presence of earth element in the breath, in the air. Notice that. Sometimes breath is very wet, or moisture in the breath. That is because of the presence of water element in the air. Humidity. Sometimes you notice the breath is warm. That is because of the presence of heat element in the breath. You naturally notice breath is moving in and out. That is because of the presence of air element. These elements you cannot know any other way other than noticing their characteristics. Characteristic of earth element is hardness. Characteristic of water element is moisture. Characteristic of heat elements is feeling hot, warm. Characteristic of air element is oscillation or movement. Through these characteristics, you can notice the presence of these elements in the breath. When everything is calm, relaxed and peaceful, you may notice some degree of relaxed feeling, peaceful feeling. If any moment you experience any desire, greed, let it go. You can see changing, rising and falling of breath. That means the breath is not permanent. It is impermanent. It is changing. So don't try to hold on to it. That builds up friction. Then you can notice that fading away. Sometimes you may remember certain things in the past that had been unpleasant. When you remember something unpleasant, aversion can arise in the mind. We have to get rid of that by noticing again impermanent nature of your breath. When all these are taken care of, you might experience quiet, peaceful state, which might trigger your sleepiness or drowsiness. Don't give into sleepiness. That will not bring you any new insight. When you have taken care of sleepiness by sometimes visualizing very bright light or holding your breath as long as you can and slowly breathing out, several times your sleepiness fades away. You perhaps might notice then you may have too much energy that causes restlessness and worry. You take care of that by bringing mind to the front, the present moment. Keeping mind in the present moment can take care of your restlessness and worry. Seeing all these things, you can build up your confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Your practice all can bring you confidence. We must have very strong confidence in the Buddha who introduced this mindfulness method for us to liberate ourselves from samsaric suffering. And therefore it is very important for us to have this confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. When you have taken care of all these hindrances, temporarily you gain joy, which leads to happiness, which makes you even very calm and peaceful, and gain concentration. With this short instructions on the practice, let us practice for a while and then see the results from our own practice. මේක වැඩ කරන්නේ නත්ති ධානං අපඤ්ඤස්ස අඤ්ඤානත්ති අජායතෝ යම් විඥානං ච පඤ්ඤා ච සවේ නිබ්බාන සම්තිකේ. There is no concentration without wisdom, no wisdom without concentration. One who has both wisdom and concentration is close to peace and emancipation. Friends, good morning, everybody. This morning, we want to start our Dhamma talks. Today's topic is right understanding. As you all know, this is a thematic retreat. The theme of this retreat is Noble8Fold Path. Is there anybody who does not know Noble8Fold Path? Only those who do not know, raise your hand. Only two. I assume everybody else knows. You know Noble8Fold Path? You don't know? You know? You know? Okay. Let me give you the list to cover everybody. Even those who know can refresh their memory. Those who don't know, learn it fresh, anew. Number one, right understanding. Number two, right thought. Number three, right speech. Number four, right action. Number five, right livelihood. Number six, right effort. Number seven, right mindfulness. Number eight, right concentration. Okay? If that is not clear, let me tell it in Pali. Samma Ditti, Samma Sankalpa, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. Now you know it in two languages. There is no reason for you to forget it. Why? This doesn't work. I think that is better. It's very painful to keep it here. So now you can hear better. Yeah. Right. These have been translated as the first one has been translated into English as right view. but I prefer using the word right understanding, because an enlightened person doesn't have a view. Enlightened person is gone beyond views. So right understanding aims in attaining full enlightenment, views. And therefore, I personally prefer the word right understanding. Now, what is right understanding? It can be explained in many different ways. I like to talk on 16 ways, not only one way, but there are 16 ways of right understanding. Listen very carefully. Try to remember all the 16. Then your right understanding is good. At least in theory. But I don't know whether you will have right understanding at the end of the 16 ways of explaining. But at least theoretically, you have a certain degree of theoretical understanding of right understanding. Number one, understanding wrong as wrong and the root of wrong. Understanding right as right and the roots of right. What is wrong? Now the wrong, this is explained in right understanding category, is not an opinion. It is not provincially wrong. It is not only personally wrong. It is not wrong yesterday and right today, and wrong again tomorrow. This wrong is wrong for then, now, and future. Wrong to you and wrong to me. That kind of universal wrong. And what is that? Killing is wrong. Killing is wrong. Stealing is wrong. Abusing in sensual pleasures is wrong. Misconduct in sensual pleasures is wrong. Lying is wrong. Slanderous talk is wrong. Harsh speech is wrong. Senseless blabbering is wrong. Senseless babbling is wrong. Covetousness is wrong. Covetousness. What is covetousness? Greed with jealousy. Greed endowed with jealousy. For instance, when you see somebody's property, first you will have a jealous. You become jealous. And then you think, I wish I have that. So there are two unwholesome mental states combined together to call covetousness. It is stronger than greed.
Then hatred is wrong. Hatred in any form, for any reason, is wrong. And wrong views are wrong. I give you one example for wrong. I mean, very few. There are so many things we think wrongly. One wrong view is thinking that there is no benefit of giving. Thinking that there is no benefit of giving. Thinking that there is no benefit of sacrifice. Thinking that there is no benefit of offering. Thinking that there is no next world. Thinking that this world is just there, it is not real thing. Thinking that there is no somebody called a mother. Thinking that there is no person called father. Like that, all kind of confused thinking is called wrong thinking. Now, how many are there? Did you count? I think it is very good to count. When you count, it is easy to remember. I saw you writing down. How many? 10. 10. 10 things are wrong. And what is the root? 3 roots. Greed, hatred, and delusion. Because of greed, hatred, and delusion, these 10 things we commit. 10 wrong things we, roots are 3. From these 3 roots, 10 things we do incorrectly. 10 wrong things we do incorrectly. So that is the wrong and the root of wrong. What is right? Also 10. It is very easy to list the right 10 right things. That is just the opposite of this. Not killing is right. Not stealing is right. Not misconduct in sensual pleasures is right. Right conduct in sensual pleasure is right. The misconduct is wrong. Telling the truth is right. Talking about bringing people together, uniting the divided, friendly talks, loving talks is good. Then speaking very softly, gently, kindly against harsh speech, and speaking something sensible, like dana katha, sila katha, sagya katha, talk of renunciation, and talk of on seclusion, talk on concentration, talk of wisdom, talk of meditation. Things are good talks instead of babbling. They're good. And non-greed, against covetousness, non-greed. That means generosity. Generosity, sharing freely without expecting anything in return. Sharing is good. And then metta, loving friendliness. Thought of loving friendliness is wonderful. Thought of compassion, wonderful. Thought of appreciating joy, wonderful. Thought of equanimity is wonderful, good thought. And then right view against wrong view. What is the right view? Giving has benefit. Offering has benefit. Donating has benefit. There is somebody, there's a next life. There's rebirth. Believing in rebirth is right belief, right view. Like that I just mentioned few. These are right things. What is then there are three right roots. What are the three right roots? Non-greed, generosity, loving friendliness, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Non-delusion is wisdom. Non-greed is generosity. Non-hatred is loving friendliness. See how wonderful these three roots are. From these three roots arise 10 benefits. Understanding this is a right understanding. If somebody has this, at least this much right understanding, even that much is enough for one to liberate from samsaric suffering. Even that much is enough. This is number one of 16 ways of right understanding. The second way of right understanding is understanding nutriments. Nutriments. All living beings, all those who are coming into existence and those who are existing, depends on nutriments. Food. Without food, no one can exist. And there are 4 kinds of food. What are they? Material food. Kabalinkara, material food. Contact. Then thought and consciousness. Friends, Buddha's wisdom was so deep that he put these 4 as foods. We all know material food. That is, we are eating and drinking through mouth. We consume. Sometimes when we cannot use mouth, they put tubes these days and to feed us. Because we need that nourishment to sustain the body. Every cell in our body needs food. Brain needs food. The rest of the body needs food. All of you will know that. That's number one. Number two, second kind of food is contact. Physical or mental contact. Adivachana sampasa or patika sampasa. Contact has 6 kinds of contacts. What are the 6 kinds of contacts? Since we have 6 senses, through these 6 senses, there are 6 kinds of contacts. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, and mind contact. These 6 kinds of contacts also considered to be food. We have to understand them very clearly and deeply. Physical contact, it is We contact the environment physically. We contact material, solid object physically. It is believed that if a baby after birth left alone without contact, the baby will die. Baby needs physical contact. Baby needs to hear, contact through the ear. Like that, we grow with the contact with the environment, external things. That generates positive hormones. That helps us to live. If the contact always is negative, then it will be very difficult for us to develop positively, grow positively. And therefore, that is important. Second type of food. Third type of food, thought. Thoughts are food. People say that normally that's food for thought, they say. Food for thought. But thought is food itself. Thought is food to the brain, to the mind, to develop our spiritual path. Thought is food to live happily or miserably. Thought is food to have good rebirth or bad rebirth. Thought. Thought is karma. That's extremely important. So thought, if you think of the benefit of thought or disadvantage of thought, you can see how much thought influences our life. This life, future lives, other people's lives, and so forth. Therefore, thought is food. Then the last is consciousness. Consciousness also is food. Because consciousness triggers the entire existence. Consciousness. These are the 4 kinds of food. Understanding these 4 kinds of food, and then the origin of these 4 kinds of foods. Origin of these 4 kinds of food. What is the origin? Origin is desire. Origin of food is desire. And the cessation of food. Cessation of food is the cessation of desire. There is a way to cease desire. That's the way to cease desire, or way for the cessation of desire, is the Noble 8-fold Path. We repeat the Noble 8-fold Path at least 15 times, so you will not forget it. We repeated once now, and we are going to repeat it 15 more times. So there is no excuse for you to forget it. The way to cease the desire is the same as in the Four Noble Truth, the same. The way to cease desire is the Noble 8-fold Path. Friends, when we read the list or repeat the list, you sometimes might think, how can the Noble 8-fold Path ceases or helps to cease desire? We mentioned the list of Noble Eightfold Path, the list, the 8 steps we mentioned. And in the when we explain these things, we say so many things about Noble Eightfold Path. Then one might wonder how the Noble Eightfold Path helps us to cease, stop, overcome desire. The desire, greed is the cause of the material food and the cause of suffering and so on. Now, how Noble Eightfold Path helps to cease desire? This is very subtle and most important point to remember. What is number 1 of the Noble Eightfold Path? Right understanding. How we understand what is wrong, what is right, and what is the root of wrong, what is the root of right. And now we say for nutriments, the source of cause of all nutriments is desire. Desire, because when we have desire, we consume food. We have desire for food. We have desire for contact. We have desire for thinking. We have desire for consciousness. Now, how Noble Eightfold Path helps to get rid of this desire? Number 1, we have to remember, in the right understanding, there is a part that we have not mentioned. That part is that everything, without any exception, is impermanent. This is not a joke. This is a very, very serious, fundamental, basic root of Dhamma. Law of Dhamma. Element of Dhamma. Impermanence is root of Dhamma. Law of Dhamma. Element of Dhamma. Established Dhamma. And that is why the Buddha said, whether the Buddhas come into existence or not, these elements of Dhamma exist. This root of Dhamma exists. This law of Dhamma exists. That all conditioned things are impermanent. When we understand that everything is impermanent, then there is no place for desire. There is no place for desire. Of course, in ordinary life, day-to-day life, people have desire. Without desire, you cannot exist. Surely, for you to exist, you have to have desire. Existing means, what is existing means? Suffering. Existing means suffering. Is there any existing without suffering? No. Occasionally we have little pleasure. That is most insignificant compared to the amount of suffering we have. So when we know understanding, if we right understanding, in the right understanding, number 1 is understanding impermanence. Impermanence. When we understand impermanence, we can choose one of the 2 types of desires. One desire is wholesome, other desire is unwholesome. What is unwholesome desire? Unwholesome desire, desire to perpetuate desire, desire to increase desire, is unwholesome desire. What is wholesome desire? Desire to be desireless. Desire to be desireless is a wholesome desire. That is what we have to cultivate with understanding, right understanding. So, when we talk about the nutriments, the base, the cause or reason for nutriments is desire. The base is desire. The way to get rid of that is practicing Noble Eightfold Path. In the Noble Eightfold Path, number one is right understanding. In the right understanding, impermanence is extremely important. Understanding impermanence. In right understanding impermanence is important. Therefore, in every step of the right understanding, we must keep in mind this very important factor in mind. We must keep in mind. So I explained 2 steps of right understanding out of 16. What is number one? Understanding what is wrong and the root of what is wrong. Understanding what is right and the root of right, what is right. And second is understanding nutriments. Nutriments. Origin of nutriments, cessation of nutriments, and the path leading to the cessation of nutriments. That is a Noble Eightfold Path. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration are the 8. Number 3 of right understanding is understanding the Four Noble Truths itself. This is the most common way of right understanding. Many people, when they ask what is right understanding, they say, understanding the Four Noble Truths is right understanding. There's no question about it. But in this explanation, I mentioned there are 16 ways. One of the 16 ways is understanding Four Noble Truths. In the list, in my list, this is number 3. Understanding Four Noble Truths. Friends, if we understand Four Noble Truths, we don't have to understand anything else. All other 16 can be cancelled by default if we understand the Four Noble Truths. Number 1, suffering. I think most of the time I'm reluctant to talk about suffering because the very word causes suffering in people's mind. As soon as they hear the word suffering, they immediately experience suffering. They don't even like to hear the word suffering. And that is the very first step for people to turn away from Buddhism. Because at the very beginning, they talk about suffering. Who wants it? Friends, whether we like it or not, We have to understand that. Liking or disliking is something, but understanding is important. When you understand correctly, properly, perfectly, you like it. Not suffering. You like not suffering. But the truth imbibed, included in the word suffering, the truth. That's the truth. Inevitable truth. You cannot make it otherwise. And Buddha has given a long list of examples of suffering, not complete, and in various discourses. Birth, growth, sickness, separating from loved ones, living with unloved ones, not getting what one wants, even to get what one wants, it is not listed there. Not to get what one wants is suffering, but when we look at it, even to get what one wants is suffering. How is that? Not to get what one wants is suffering, but even to get what one wants is suffering. These are two tragedies in life. To get what one wants is suffering, and not to get what one wants is suffering, and even to get what one wants is suffering. Why the second is suffering? Of course, first one we understand. Not to get what we want is suffering, we understand. How come to get what one wants is suffering? Yeah? What? What? Impermanent. Impermanent. You get, you like. But how long you can keep it? First, we understand you are so excited when you get something that you want, so excited, thrilled, jump up and down, run, laugh, kiss, hug, even cry, shedding tears of joy because you get what you want. Then the law of diminishing return begins to operate. In economics, you learn the law of diminishing return. It applies to everything in life. And since it operates, the suffering sneaks into our life. The law of diminishing return is the law of impermanence. And that is so subtle, you may think, I want only pleasure, not suffering, not pain. But you cannot avoid the second. That is why I many times I repeated, you get one, you buy one, get one free. You buy one, get one free. You work very hard to buy one, and one that free also comes along with that. You cannot say, I like what I buy, I don't like what comes free. You cannot do that because the whole thing comes in one package. In one package. So I mentioned all these things with regard to suffering. whether we like it or not, it is there. And we have to understand this correctly, properly, clearly. That is number one. Number two, what is the cause? Cause of suffering, understanding. First we understand suffering, then we must understand the cause of suffering. Cause of suffering is, once again, desire. Cause of suffering is desire. And the end of suffering, we have to understand the end of suffering, because suffering itself is not permanent. That is the benefit of impermanence, the law of impermanence. Established Dhamma. And root of Dhamma. The root of Dhamma, everything, impermanence underlies everything, including suffering. So suffering, there is at least some kind of solace, comfort for us to think. Suffering is impermanent. So we must understand the end of suffering, because it is impermanent. And the path leading to the end of suffering also, again, the Noble Eightfold Path. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. This is the number 3 of the 16 ways of understanding. Number 3. Number 4 is aging and death. We have to understand aging and death. What is aging and what is death? Aging has various names. At certain level, at certain time, we call it growing. Growing. When the aging in the mother's womb is called proliferation, multiplying cells in the mother's womb. And from the time we come out of mother's womb, we begin to grow. Baby is growing. And then child is growing. Then teenager is growing. Adolescent is growing. Young adult is growing. Then when we come to middle age, we don't say we are growing. Then what we call it? Aging. Aging. And that doesn't change. We keep aging. But from the moment we were conceived in the mother's womb, the process is the same, but only the name is different. Process is the same. And that is happening. That's called aging. When we call aging, only at certain times, when we see our wrinkled skin on our hands, face, body, then we say, aging. Gray hair or no hair or more salt, less pepper is growing. Loose teeth, growing. Poor hearing, poor seeing, growing. No, slow walk, as I do, growing. So, understand that. Friends, this is happening in a very subtle way. Every cell in our body, 56 trillion cells in our body is changing every moment. Every time we breathe in, we bring oxygen into our lungs. And that charges our oxygen depleted red blood cell, hemoglobins. Is all the hemoglobins or red blood cells are charged with oxygen. And oxygen-rich cells go to the heart. Heart pumps and then send this oxygen throughout our body. That mechanism is going on all the time from the mother's womb till we pass away. That process is going on. That is changing. That is impermanence. This happens every moment. Without oxygen, we cannot live. And therefore, the breath itself is called body conditioner. Kaya sankhara. Asasa pasasa is called kaya sankhara. Inhaling, exhaling is called kaya sankhara. Body conditioner. Oxygen conditions this body. And it happens always. Changing. We have to think only just for a second to understand this truth of impermanence. They are changing. So, suffering, aging, and death. This process is called aging. And then the death, of course, that doesn't need explanation. Sooner or later, we will die. If you remember your friends, relatives, parents, grandparents, and so forth and so on, 30 years ago, those who lived are no longer here. And every single day we hear people dying. So that is very natural. We all happen. So this is understanding. The fourth kind of understanding. What is that? Aging and death. And the cause of aging and death is, what is the cause of aging and death? You know, when somebody dies, pathologist will tell this person died because of such and such brain damage. The monk in the temple may say he died because he broke the 5th precept, cirrhosis. A politician may come and tell him he died because of poverty. And different people have different reasons for death. Buddha has only one cause. Why he died? Because he was born. He died because he was born. That is the cause of death. And the path leading to the cessation of death, what is the path? Noble8fold Path. How can we stop aging and death? by understanding Noble Eightfold Path, can we stop aging and death by understanding the Noble Eightfold Path? Yes. What we have to do is stop birth. Don't take birth. It doesn't mean that you should commit suicide. It's a very foolish thing. That is a wonderful, marvelous spiritual method to stop death. Spiritual method. That spiritual method, if we follow very sincerely, we certainly can stop death and not to be reborn again and have everlasting peace. Have everlasting peace. Never to die again. That's what we are trying to do with all these things. We are trying to do that slowly and gradually. We want to stop birth. Then the number 5 of right understanding is understanding birth, because we die because of birth, understanding birth. Cause of birth, end of birth, and the path leading to the end of birth. We understand what birth is. When one factor in birth explained in biology, one factor is missing, but in the Buddha's teaching, he added that factor as well. You know, when the sperm and ovum meet together, when the mother is in right season, when these two meet together in the fallopian tube, there's a birth, embryo start. But to make it alive, there has to be a third factor. What is the third factor? Consciousness. Consciousness. Without consciousness, no two factors coming together make it a being. So for the birth, these 3 factors must come together. Ovum, sperm, that means mother has to be in season, and their man has to meet, and then consciousness must be present. When these 3 factors come together, birth takes place. Birth starts in the womb, and then we come out, and that is the birth. Now, there are human birth, animal birth, divine birth, and birth in spontaneous birth. Now, all these births, consciousness is extremely important. Sometimes people think animals don't have consciousness. Animals do have consciousness. You read the latest National Geographic magazine. They scientifically proved that animals have consciousness. Until then, Buddha spoke about consciousness as a necessary factor for birth 2,600 years ago. Only now scientists begin to find, through scientific investigation, that even animals need consciousness to have life. Since we just want to eat their flesh, we think in our own way that they don't have consciousness. It's all right, just they are our meat, our food, and we eat. That is how we justify our eating. But As far as life is concerned, they have life, they have consciousness. So this third factor is important for birth. And then birth is the cause of death, as I mentioned earlier. So understanding birth, understanding cause of birth. What is the cause of birth? Cause of birth is called becoming, bhava. Bhava. And in the dependent origination, you get bhavapatya jati. Bhava. Then the end of birth is the end of bhava, end of becoming. And the path leading to the end of birth is the Noble8Fold Path. Again, through understanding of impermanence and practicing it. Impermanence, I want to mention once again one important fact I forgot. When ordinary person sees impermanence, that person has suffering. I said not to get what one got is also suffering. Why? Because of impermanence. That is for ordinary person, impermanence causes suffering. Yada nityam tan dukkham. Whatever is impermanent is suffering. But for learned, insightful, mindful person, impermanence gives a pleasure. For mindful person, learned person, learned of Dhamma person has a pleasure from impermanence. He sees impermanence in all the 5 aggregates, all the time. And that is why Buddha said, Yato yato sammasati khandanang udayabhyang labhati piti pamojjang amatantang janatang. Whenever mindful person, person with integrity, person with insight, whenever such person sees rising and falling of form, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness, that person, because of that awareness, becomes full of joy and happiness. Labhati piti pamojjam. Joy and tranquility. Why is that? How is that? Because the person sees the truth, reality. When the person sees reality, reality doesn't have different dimensions. Truth doesn't have dimensions. It has only one dimension. Untruth can have different dimensions. Truth has only one dimension. And therefore, the one who sees the truth of impermanence sees the wholeness, completeness. That triggers joy and tranquility. The person who doesn't have the knowledge of all the dimensions can have unhappiness. Person who sees the fullness, completeness has joy and tranquility. And therefore, birth can end by seeing through the practice of Noble8Fold Path, one can see this completeness of the reality, the truth. That is impermanence of everything. Only if there is a darkness in the mind, any dark corner in the mind, person suffers. If the mind is very clear in seeing this truth, the person will have joy, pleasure, happiness. Anyway, that is the number 5. Number 6 of right understanding is seeing becoming. Birth is one thing, becoming is another. Becoming is a more general term. Rupa, kama, rupa, arupa. Becoming in the planes of sensual pleasures. There are many planes of sensual pleasures. Animal kingdom, human, divine, and so forth. These are all planes or realms or dimensions where sensual pleasure exists. And so long as these planes exist, birth takes place. If these planes don't exist at all, there is no birth. You can see this very clearly mentioned and described in Mahanidana Sutta, in Dīpinikāya. Mahanidana Sutta. I simply mention the name of the sutta for you to read it for your further knowledge. Great discourse on causation. Anyway, the sphere of existence called Bhava. A sphere of existence called Bhava. They are Bhava of sensual pleasures, Bhava of becoming, or sphere of material existence, that is higher than sensual pleasure existence. In material existence is reached, can be reached through the practice of jhana, meditation, concentration meditation. And there is another sphere called immaterial existence, arupa bhava. They are called kama bhava, rupa bhava, arupa bhava. Kama bhava means the realms, sphere, domain where beings are born to enjoy sensual pleasure. Rupa is what you call a sphere where beings are born not to enjoy sensual pleasure, but enjoy peace of equanimity, peace of equanimity. Rupa, arupa, both enjoy the peace of equanimity. Now, what is the cause of that? Craving, tanna. No, clinging. There is a clinging to be born in human, animal realms, then there will be birth in those places. When there is a desire to be born in material forms higher than human and divine, then the birth will take place there. If there is a desire to be born in immaterial form through the practice of jhana, they will be born there. So this is just understanding. And the cause of that is desire or clinging. and end of it is Noble Eightfold Path again. Then number 8, I think. 7 or 8, I forgot the counting now. Yes. Understanding clinging, upadana. Upadana means clinging. Clinging depends on desire. When we have desire, we cling to something. And we cling to holding on to something, that also we cling kama, ditthi, avidya. Upadana, we cling to form. Rupupadana, Dittupadana, Avidjupadana, 3. We cling with desire for form. We cling with ignorance. We cling with wrong view. These are 3 types of views. And we have craving for clinging. If there is no craving, we don't cling. That is, then end of craving, clinging stops. To end craving, we practice Noble Eightfold Path again. Then craving has 6 kinds. Next step, number 8 or 9, I don't remember. Craving has 6 steps. There are Rupa Tanha, Saddha Tanha, Gandha Tanha, Rasa Tanha, Pottabha Dhamma, Dhamma Tanha. Rupa Tanha, craving for seeing objects. Then craving for hearing sound. Craving for smelling. Craving for taste. Craving for touch. Craving for mind objects. These are the 6 kinds of craving. We have to understand the nature of craving. We mentioned by name, but don't have time to explain them in detail. See the gong. So I try to explain the right understanding in combination of dependent origination and the 4 noble truths. 4 noble truths combined with dependent origination can give us right understanding in 16 ways. I think tomorrow I speak on in the morning, right action maybe. He speaks it on right thought. Then I speak on right speech tomorrow. Right understanding is just scratching the surface. I didn't have time to explain it. In order to complete this Noble Eightfold Path Retreat, we take one aspect, one of the 8 at a time to give a talk. So we take turns. I give all odd numbers. I use, he will use even numbers. So I'm always odd all the time anyway. So thank you very much for patient listening, and see you tomorrow morning.